Hello everyone, welcome to Film Seizure. I am Jason Oliver and I will be your host today along with two other fine hosts. One of them is named Chuck. Say hello, Chuck.
Hello, Chuck.
And say hello, Jeff.
Hello, Chuck.
This doesn't work. How will they know who you are?
I am Jeff Arbuckle, your co-host for this episode of Film Seizure. And, at some point in the past, did this on the Monster Mondays.
Yeah. So, 2006, I think this is our first Del Toro.
Yes.
Pan's Labyrinth. Or, if you want to hear me butcher the Spanish language.
Oh, here we go.
El Labertino del Fauno?
Fauno.
Labyrinto. El Labyrinto del Fauno.
Yeah, it's probably Labyrinto, but I don't know for sure. Anyway.
How did it get changed from Fauno to Pan?
Because Pan is the fawn.
Yeah, but
I mean,
the fawn is more generic. Pan is
typically Pan is represented as a fawn.
Yes, but he's never
probably
Pan.
Probably for U.S. audiences.
He calls himself the fawn.
Yeah,
it's probably for U.S. audiences.
We're pretty dumb up here.
Yeah.
So we would recognize Pan and not fawn.
Pan to me, well, I don't know if I even like my thought on Pan is it's like devilish, but I don't even know if that's accurate.
Typically, those guys are, typically not always. They're not like Mr. Tumnus, typically.
Right.
They're usually darker.
Yeah.
Right. They're typically darker entities.
Yeah.
Like fairies. Fairies are typically darker entities. But they were trying to help the girl out in this one. Oh my God! Yeah. Only to get eaten.
The fucking fairies.
Well, Pan is it a Greek god? Is a Greek god.
I thought it was a demigod, not a god. But
anyway. It's also, I believe, it's Sagittarius, or no, Capricorn. Capricorn is the constellation that Pan represents.
It feels like we should have done some research on this stuff prior.
Well, it's interesting because I started doing a little bit of Pan research recently for an idea that was noodling around in my head. One of the things I had also uncovered was that Pan is associated with sleeping sickness and also associated with sleep paralysis. In fact, a lot of people like in ancient civilizations that would have the kind of like sleep paralysis issues and would see the dark shape, or they would describe it as a monster sitting on their chest. They said it was Pan that was causing their paralysis. Yeah, so there's lots of really interesting Pan stuff, and Pan is also the god of the common folk, and usually represents like the nature side of the nature of man and versus technology, and nature versus technology, right? So Pan is very rooted in folk horror, therefore, because it's usually when you have like those themes of nature protecting itself from the advancement of technology or anything that would harm the environment, right? It's kind of
very earthly kind of.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense for this guy because he is so earthy. He doesn't just smell of the earth. He creaks like wood.
He's like Groot.
Yeah, he kind of is. Yeah, he's made from wood. I like him. Yeah.
One thing I do want to add here, because he brought up an affliction of mine, sleep paralysis and night terrors. It is so interesting to me, like the historical things that either get created or attributed to stuff. Like you're talking about night terrors, sleep paralysis, and in my view and others' views, like getting anally probed by aliens is sleep paralysis in a time where people were highly aware of UFOs. Like it'd be interesting to go back through time and see all of the, like, what the historical...
Well, did you ever watch the documentary? There's a documentary about it that came out a few years ago.
No, I live it, so I don't watch it normally, but I'm kind of fascinated by it.
I mean, it goes into all of that. It's
okay.
It's answering your call.
Okay, then I'm gonna watch it.
Or something that would go through. So what was it called? It was done by the guy. I think it was done by the guy who made the that Stanley Kubrick Shining documentary Room
227. I fucked that up.
227. That's a whole other thing.
There's some furry stuff happening in there or something.
No, I was just talking about the old sitcom.
It's called The Nightmare. Yeah. It's called The Nightmare.
Okay.
And it was directed by, it was the guy who did Room 237. He also did that Glitch in the Matrix movie. He was featured in Lynch Oz as well as one of the talking heads. But yes, Rodney Asher. Check it out.
I will. I will say, because we're talking about nightmares and sleep paralysis and all that stuff. This movie, like, really does kind of represent it in a major way. So it does kind of connect to that stuff, even if Del Toro isn't like, I'm going to use this idea of Pan being part of a sleep disorder. Like, it's pretty well done, dreamlike paralysis, because even Ophelia is often looking like she cannot move when she's in his presence.
Not only that, but when he comes to visit her, it's in while she's in bed. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's an interesting connection that kind of, I think, was hovering for me, but not.
Yeah. Well, and also on top of all of that, too, you have, this is a child's reconciliation with what's going on in the real world. So it would manifest in a dreamlike sort of way, potentially. So, because everything the Pan or the Fawn and Ophelia do together is represented in the real world as well.
Absolutely. 100%.
So, yeah.
So, I don't think I'd seen this movie since it was in the theaters. It's been that long. And when I suggested this movie, I had no recollection of how unbelievably dark it is.
Merry really Christmas, dark. Happy holidays, everybody. Go fuck yourselves.
I apologize. where I feel like City of Lost Children definitely still fits, and it certainly fits a holiday theme. I don't know that this one does.
It's still a family. It's still a family movie.
Sure. Yeah.
There's family in it.
But my goodness, I did not remember that the fairy tale aspect of this was actually really, really dark. I remember some of the creepy monster stuff, but I still was thinking, oh, this is Del Toro, you know? But no, this is thematically a very dark movie.
It lets you know pretty early, too, how brutal it is. Like, I was taken aback. I was like, holy shit. It's not even like thematically
brutal. It's like the brutal things happen on screen. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the worst things I remember seeing in a long while happens in this movie. Like, totally played out. I'm like, holy shit. But
yeah. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
We're at it again.
Christmas, Kwanzaa, is that what it is? So whatever you celebrate, I apologize because this movie is not in the spirit of the holidays, but I think it is still a very important movie and a good reminder of the dangers of fascism. So,
this.
When's the last time you saw it?
Well, whenever I didn't. Oh, did you say
Monster
Jeff
Monday?
or Chuck? Yeah, Monster Mondays. Yeah,
Yep.
That was actually the first time I saw it, and I can tell you that seeing it again, because it was one of those ones that was like, it was always on the pile, and I was like, well, I've got Monster Mondays, so here's the perfect option to, get it on the Criterion disc and watch it and do all that.
That's weird considering how big a fan you are.
I know. But it's the second time I can see so many more layers too. So, I mean, especially with like the language of fascism, that comparison of what each task is represented in the real world and all that stuff. So we'll get to that. So I'm ready to peel that onion.
And then Chuck, how long it had been for you. Was this your first time watch or no?
This is my second watch. I just don't. I mean, the first time had to be around video release of it. Like, it's been a long time because I also forgot how brutal it is. I remember the monsters. I remember the fantasy part of it, not the reality part of it.
Me too. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, this is the first time I've seen it in probably 18 years. And I think part of me, like, subconsciously knew that it was a movie that I needed to, like, probably watch, but also avoid because of its dark themes, right?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I just got a wild hair at my ass to throw it in this month, and here we are.
What's weird about it too, though, is like for the last 24 hours or however long since it's been since I watched it, I've been thinking again about the fantastical elements of it and like kind of submerging all that brutality
right
in my brain. So it's working on that level again.
Yeah. That's interesting. You're right, because it represses the real brutality and replaces it with this fantasy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
At all points. In fact, one point to its detriment in my eyes that brings it from, because I fucking loved watching this movie. I loved it. Like, I think I've said this before, like, I'm on a clock of restroom use, like where I go like every 30 minutes during a movie if I watch it at home. Steph looked at me. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You haven't gone to the bathroom yet." We were like an hour and 10 minutes in. Like, I was in there.
You were locked in.
Oh, good. There's just one moment that I will talk about later that I'm like, I wish that wasn't there.
This is also, should mention, it's what Del Toro kind of calls as a spiritual successor to The Devil's Backbone, which was his second Spanish language film, first being his debut, Kronos.
Right.
But that movie takes place kind of in the historical period right before this one, with like the end of the Spanish Civil War, right? And this one picks up kind of like as the Spanish Civil War is pretty much over, but there's still the guerrillas and factions out there like trying to fend off fascism, but the writing's kind of on the wall. And Spain will be a fascist, under a fascist dictator, Franco, for like the next
30 years. Yeah.
I don't want to go down.
It's probably the most successful fascist regime ever. Most of the time they crumble pretty quickly. Certainly in Europe, it lasted probably the longest.
Didn't this take place in 1944?
Yes.
So the Americans landed on Normandy. They read
that article. Yeah.
So this, maybe this is just my ignorance. The Spanish Civil War is going on at the same time as World War II.
So the Germans and the Italians backed Franco's regime in the Civil War, and it's happening at the same time. Technically speaking, Spain was not involved. They didn't send troops to World War II, but they were behind the scenes assisting, like with supplies and things, the access.
Gotcha. I mean,
they were technically
the
neutral.
Franco regime was. Yeah.
Because they for the most part, stayed out of World War I too. There was all sorts of issues in Spain in the first half of the 20th.
Just Spain, it doesn't get talked about a lot when World War II, at least in this hemisphere. We focus on other things when we talk about World War II.
But yeah, they were still like very, very intrinsically tied to particularly Italy and Germany. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. Thank you for that.
And then the other film I want to mention, I know this is one you haven't seen yet, Jeff, and you haven't either, Chuck, but Jeff, being the GTD scholar that he is, it's got to get on your list. Scholar, I use that.
No. It was GDT, not GDT.
Yes, thank you. Anyway, it's Spirit of the Beehive. And Spirit of the Beehive was a 1974 film that is very much like this sort of allegorical fairy tale about the Spanish Civil War, and one of Del Toro's favorite films. And it uses as its avatar for fascism is sort of the innocence of this little girl who is obsessed with the movie Frankenstein. And it's awesome. Like, it's such a good movie, and you can so see how it would have affected Del Toro, and he's essentially kind of made that movie a few times now in his career. And I'm so excited to see his version of Frankenstein, because I don't think it's just going to be a run-of-the-mill, straightforward, Frankenstein movie. It's going to be packed with his type of metaphor, which is going to be cool to see.
I think it's going to look an awful lot like Crimson Peak.
Yeah.
But use all of his other movies, like sensibilities and style and yeah.
I'm excited about that one. Okay, so that's, I guess, all the housekeeping. Should we talk about this movie?
I mean, yeah, you guys seem to be surprised by how dark it is. So this is going to be fun. Let's get back into it.
I'm kind of in Chuck's boat from last week, because I just finished watching this, so a lot of it is still kind of percolating and swimming around in my brain, trying to file itself. Yeah. So I'm happy that you particularly, Chuck, have had some time to digest it, and Jeff, he's on a second recent watch, so I think we'll have a lot of good stuff to
absolutely
dig in here. But yeah, I mean, how does the movie begin? It begins with
the fairy tale background.
Yes.
Because it's about Princess Moana, who has decided to go on an adventure and escape the underworld, where all the magical things live and exist. And she basically went through a portal that brought her to the real world. And in doing so, she basically, because of the sunlight hitting her, she lost her memory. And then it kind of transitions to 1944 country house in Spain, where we meet Ophelia and her mother, Carmen.
Is that a pure creation of Del Toro, that sort of centerpiece for the fairy tale, or is that drawn from something? I was just curious. If you don't know, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I think it was more the creatures were more of his of the real, like, what he's plucking from. I think probably the underworld stuff is just kind of a classical, like, princess tale, fairy tale type of thing that I mean, Disney's adaptation is way different. Moana is really weird. The Rock shows up. It's wild, man. Anyway,
one thing to say here, because I had forgotten about that lead in, like, after, now that we're talking about dreams, like the sun hitting you and making you forget, like, you wake up, you forget your dreams.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, totally 100%, I think, what that is telling you, but you don't realize it when you're watching it.
Yeah, because that's the other thing also, he's plucking from lucid dreaming theories and concepts and stuff too, and makes a whole lot of sense when you think about how this movie ends and what she returns to. That makes a whole lot of sense, that Princess Moana is just a figment of a dream of this girl,
Yeah.
But so they're driving toward this country house where Carmen has remarried a captain in a Francoist army. Or they're not really army. They're more like, they're dressed like army, but they're a little bit more like a national police force.
Like a Gestapo or something.
Yeah. They're because technically he is part of the Phalanges, which was a military organization under the Francoist regime.
Gotcha.
And now there's this whole thing here. This is one thing that is really, really, really important to understand, that there are two concepts here that are very, I think, very well woven into this, that isn't necessarily brought to the forefront of this movie. One is, technically, the only reason why the world in which Ophelia is in is so oppressive is because it's so localized. It's a farmhouse that is run by the brutal captain of this. Technically, what Carmen represents is a little bit more of what happens a lot when fascist regimes take over, which is Carmen likely was at least somewhat of standing. Her husband died during the Civil War. It's not really said too much more about what he was like and who he was.
He made suits.
Yeah, my guess is that he had some sort of upper middle class or lower upper class standing, which when fascists take over, oftentimes the upper class will just fold up under it because they will be protected. The aristocracy will always be protected by fascism. It happened in Italy. It happened to a certain extent in Germany. And my guess is that she's being somewhat realizing that it's like, well, now I'm a widow. I don't really have any other choice. She marries somebody that she probably wouldn't have normally. And there is some sense of protection for her there.
I mean, this is a time where women didn't work, probably very much. So she had to attach herself to somebody. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I was gonna say there's a scene later at the dinner table.
Yeah,
where she tries to tell the story of how they met. It's pretty heavily implied to me, anyway. I thought that he killed her husband.
I agree with that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he shuts that down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But, this is not
stupid old biddies are like tee-heeing about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But this is, that's
curious. It's like,
that's the situation of like, here's the aristocrats that came to dinner.
The aristocrats.
Yes, exactly. And man, I'll tell you, the Disney adaptation of that is also very strange.
It is very strange. I wish Bob Saget had written that.
Oh my gosh.
But they're kind of sucking up to this guy who has a semblance of power. Now, I'm not necessarily calling Carmen a bad person for seeking some sort of security, but this is what she would have, her options probably would have been limited in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, she has a daughter that she needs
to be taken care of. Yeah. And, so one of the other things about Carmen is also she is pregnant, which Ophelia very specifically says to Mercedes, the housekeeper at the farm, that she is sick with child. The pregnancy is not going well. And here's another thing, that's Del Toro knows how to work with the language of fascism. The captain almost comes off as benevolent, right? Because he tells the doctor, give her the best care.
Make her healthy
because I want my son to be born. The problem is that it's always self-serving, right? Because at the end of the day, he says, if there's a choice, the son must live.
Spoiler alert.
But yes. Well, not really. I mean, he says that in the first act, basically. It's like, keep her alive, but if there's a choice, the son wins out.
Right.
And so it's that whole kind of idea where it's like, there is a sense of, we have some place that we can call home. Maybe it's not great, but we have protection. We have pretty good health care if everything is good, but it's always going to be self-serving of the representative of that fascist society.
She's married to, a misogynist sadist. So
exactly.
Right. But yes, you're right. It's like, it's a survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of ways, she put herself in, the situation. Well, in every way, she put herself in the situation that ends up being the death of her and someone else. That would be a true spoiler.
Right. Well, but also at the same time, I mean, in the larger world, the world of Spain is not likely, like if you go to Madrid, you're probably not seeing the same dynamics, right? There will be a fascist government, but it's not like, this isn't like V for Vendetta, right? Where you have, where you have like constant propaganda being like really, really heavy handed propaganda shoved at you. It would just be Franco's in charge and everything. But when you're isolated like this, it's concentrated, and it's kind of a fucking nightmare. But on the grander scale, on the macro scale, there would have been a lot of people just going about their lives doing whatever they can to survive and hope that someday 1975 comes along and Franco dies.
Yeah, that's the other thing, to keep in mind here too, is that in the early days of Franco's regime, they're in the middle of a depression, right? I mean, this is their economy has collapsed. And I don't really think they dig themselves out of it for almost 10 years. And then they enjoy, a couple decades of economic prosperity. Not only have we just had a civil war, now we have a fascist regime, dictator, meanwhile, the whole world's on fire, everywhere else pretty much. And we're in the middle of an economic famine, essentially.
I mean, Jason, please stop talking. Please stop talking about 2025 and let's go back to the movie now. Anyway, but and so like, because like the other thing is also, it's like, this is part of a widespread fascist takeover of a lot of I mean, like, during this era, post World War I, almost every country had a legitimate fascist through line in it, if not completely and totally taken over by it. Even Portugal and Spain both were like 40-year fascist regimes, basically. And you got Germany, you've got nationalism in Britain that could turn. Italy, of course, has turned. Russia is kind of is a communist dictatorship at the time. So it's like, it's bad everywhere. So, and it reaches all the way to China, into Japan, and a little bit here in this country too at the time. But anyway, so when Carmen gets sick and has to stop, and when they stop, this is when Ophelia sees an odd stone on the ground, and she realizes it's part of a sculpture. And when she puts it into the sculpture, this gigantic stick bug comes out, and the stick bug ends up following them. Like, she kind of chases the stick bug, and then it follows her and the procession of cars back to the farmhouse, where she sees it eventually again, and it leads her into a almost like a shining like maze, like a hedge maze of sorts. So anyway, but when we get to the farmhouse, this is when we meet our captain, which is Captain Vidal, and he is stern looking. I mean, he certainly looks the part of a fascist. And he is introduced to Ophelia for the first time, and she shakes his hand with the wrong hand, and he has to correct her on that.
He like crushes her fucking hand.
Yeah, and
then he says, Christoph Waltzy.
Yeah. He's like the Spanish Christoph Waltz. Yeah.
I think he's scary.
He's Christoph Samba.
Perfect.
Would be the tango? Is it Spanish tango?
I almost went with tango. Damn it.
You were close.
Either way, it's great.
Yeah, I think he's just scarier than Christoph Waltz, because Christoph Waltz always plays these characters with a little bit of a pulpy sense, right?
He always has a moment where he breaks the smile, and that's really where his terror is.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh no, this guy is crazy.
Captain
This guy
Ball's
is not crazy.
Straight up psycho. I mean,
but I don't think he's like insane. He doesn't portray insanity.
no, but I think he doesn't
does a
connect
little.
to anything emotionally.
Yes,
He's
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So when I'm saying a psychopath, that's what I mean. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, his moment with the mirror gives, like, I kind of wish that wasn't there either, but where
Is it too much?
it's a little too much, and it gives him, it almost, we're not there yet.
Is it too much metaphorically, like showing a self-hatred of some
Yes.
sort? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say that's the language of fascism too. He's deeply insecure and hates himself for it. So he is true to what he is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's just the additional. It's like, we're just going to check off another box here. He hates himself.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough. I still don't like it, but fair enough.
It's a little on the nose. A little on the nose.
It is, but I mean, but it's also.
But it's very quick and very like sort of blink and you miss it, and it gets into your psyche a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he strikes so fast too, right? Like that. I mean, he does not. And there's another moment. There's another moment where it's like he doesn't think about something, and just fucking brutally does a thing, and it's like, God damn, he didn't even like.
Yeah.
He's just boiling underneath the surface the whole time.
One more thing I do want to say about that knife, or that his shaving instrument that he strikes across the mirror, even though we're not there yet, is that there's so many Chekhov's guns in this movie. Like, that moment might be the moment where you're like, okay, we can check that one off. I wasn't even trying to be punny there, but because it did get used, right? In a way.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, it's, you can discount it as this is going to get used later.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is one, I mean, he is also very orderly. Like, one of the first things you see him do is he's meticulously fixing a clock, a watch.
Right.
And it's pretty obvious that the face of that pocket watch is broken. I'm going to guess that was Carmen's husband that he took from him when he died.
I'm going to guess it was his dad's.
It was his father's.
Oh, it was. You're right.
He tells the story because, well, the one guy at dinner tells the story, right? He says, I heard about the story about your father, and he kind of perks up. It was like, oh yeah, what was that? And he tells him that when his father, he says, I heard when your father died, he smashed his watch so that his son or
his
everyone
son
would know exactly
his son.
Yeah, the time that he died. And he asked if it was true, and he said, no, it couldn't be any further from the truth. He didn't own a watch, but he clearly did.
Yeah.
There is some really interesting kind of dynamic there, right? Like, there's something about that is at the center of who this guy is.
Yeah,
absolutely, because it comes up later, and we'll talk about it later. But
yeah, and the only reason why I think I kind of went off the path to think that was because he does have a fascination with watches. He takes them from people, so that's why I kind of had that. But
sure.
Yep. He probably killed his father too. Probably. I mean,
who knows? Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who's not exactly. I mean,
he has no scruples.
He has no scruples. I mean. He also certainly does not.
He completely lacks empathy on every level. Yeah.
He certainly doesn't like Mandrake people.
No.
No, he does not.
We'll get to that too.
I can't help but think of Harry Potter when I think of Mandrake now. It's so dumb. It's like, the least interesting form of the Mandrake is in the Harry Potter movies, but it's like. So, I don't know. It's just like the creepiest version of a Mandrake I've ever seen.
It's unfortunate, but I'm little by little erasing Harry Potter from my brain.
I know. Slowly, like the less I like look at it, the more I forget it, which is
which is a very Harry Potter thing to be in. You know, it's like a special spell or something put on something.
The Chamber of Forgetfulness or something.
I just need a Harry Potter son to hit me so I can forget all of it.
Well, just watch Troll instead. That's Harry Potter.
Okay.
The guy's name is Harry Potter in
That's
that.
true. That's right.
Yeah.
It's the dentist guy, right? He's Harry Potter. Is that who it is?
it's Larry Cohen's main guy.
No, it's the main guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what's his name? Larry Cohen's guy from all of his movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Anyway.
What the hell's his name? Anyway, whatever.
Anyway. So basically he is very, I mean, he it's like he can't even just accept a child's wrong-handed shaking of
right. This is his daughter.
Yeah,
this is his daughter through marriage, whom the mother was like, I want you to call him father, and obviously she's resistant to that.
Mm-hmm.
But she wants to clear that shit up with Mercedes immediately.
But she does try to have some decorum with him.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, if nothing else, to show some sort of sign of respect, right?
Right. And he's like, this isn't the right sign of respect.
Yeah. I do not accept this. Yeah. But
she's also just like not even really on his mind at all. He doesn't see her at all. And
no, she's the
best
baggage.
thing she can do is just stay out of sight. Yep.
Yeah, she's the baggage that came with the pregnant wife.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like he isn't even mad when she doesn't make it to dinner. You know?
No.
She doesn't exist.
She doesn't exist to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the less he sees her, the happier he'd be. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So after meeting Mercedes, and she spots the stick bug. And I guess I should say there's also another important figure here that's the Dr. Ferraro.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who he and Mercedes are always giving looks to each other in the first part of this, because we find out soon enough that they are actually working with the Maquis, the rebels, the guerrillas that are fighting against the Francoist phalanges.
Yes. And they don't have any weapons. They have nothing. They're just hiding in the woods, basically.
They don't even have food because they can't go and get ration cards. That's something else big that happens, is that a shit ton of supplies and rations come to hand out to the locals.
Yeah.
One, to say, hey, every week you get this, or every day you get this bread that's being given to you by Franco, so that you can be, happy and healthy and all of this. And it, but at the same time, they can't show up because if they're suspected as being, rebels, then they're done for. So they can't even eat.
That's in a later, I mean, not to interrupt you. We should talk about this in respect to her 3 quests.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And how that stuff on the outside is kind of related to it.
Yes, I agreed. So basically she sees the stick bug again, and it leads her into like I said, into this hedge maze like thing, leading her towards the center where there's a gigantic hole in the ground. But Mercedes comes and gets her before that. It's not until that night, once again, the stick bug comes back and she says, "Oh, I think you're a fairy. Here's a book that shows you, here's what I think you are. You're actually a fairy, aren't you?" And the thing transforms into a fairy. So there's your lucid dreaming. She wills something into existing. And it leads her back to the labyrinth. It's at the center of the labyrinth. So the labyrinths upon labyrinths in this. And, and she goes down into it where she meets Doug Jones. Yeah.
Dude, this is one of my favorite character designs ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like his movements and his little shakes and his everything he does. I'm there for it. And it reminds me of being in a Night Terror it really does.
Yeah, because it is something that on the surface is a very frightening looking thing, right?
Right.
But it's also, it's an ally. He immediately shows some reverence to her by calling her Princess Moana, by bowing to her, and explaining that he's been waiting for her for however long, you know. And I mean, he is, there are times where he gets angry and but he kind of has reason to in one regard. And there is another time where you think, oh no, he's actually wanting to do something pretty awful. But nah, he's just fucking with you. He's you know, it's a trick. It's the other thing.
It's very biblical, that whole ending, which we can talk about then.
Right, I was going to say it's like Pinocchio, Adam and Eve. Like, there's so much shit in here.
It's
like of
Abraham
the stories.
and Isaac, yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So, but yeah, he basically explains that, you know, by the next full moon, there's 3 tasks that she needs to complete. And he gives her a book that's no page, you know, nothing on the pages. He said, this will reveal to you the instructions you are to take, basically. And so,
sorry, just thinking about Abraham and Isaac and how it's such a cool inversion of that, but we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take it from here, Jason.
So wait, where are we?
Basically he gives her the book. Yeah. And it's like, this will provide you the steps over the course of the next few days of what to do before the next full moon.
Yeah.
And well, I will say real quick, she's plenty fine with this. For one, she only reads fairy tales. That's brought up too.
She's totally into it, man. Oh yeah. This is where she's got to go and retrieve the key from the creepy goopy massive toad in the middle of the tree. Yeah.
Yes, that's her first task.
Yeah. So leading up to that,
that's up to that she gets a dress for dinner. She has a very pretty dress. Her mom makes a big deal out of it because
she makes it.
Well, she makes it, and she's like, "How I would have dreamt to have a dress like this when I was your age, and all of this." And she's being a good daughter here, but you can tell it doesn't mean much to her. But especially because it's like, I don't know, if she had gotten this dress before everything with the captain, I'm sure it would have been like super emotional, and she would have been so appreciative, right? Because they were living of lesser means then. They were earning what they had. They loved each other. It's just more powerful, right? Now she's kind of in this situation where it's like, yeah, look, these material things are not what I want. I want my old life back. I want my father, right?
Well, not only that, but her mom also says, I want you to wear this for the captain.
Right, because her mom is very fixated on her impressing the captain. Because her mom, gets the vibe that the captain doesn't care for her daughter. And that probably pains her a great deal. So she's trying to, like, without coming right out and saying, the obvious, she's trying to, like, help her daughter in ways that might endear her to this man, right? But she's just not having it. But yet she dresses up in the dress. Everyone in the kitchen is gives her compliments. But she goes to do her task. And to do her task, she's got to get really muddy. But she takes the dress off, so she's just wearing her undergarment and hangs it on a tree branch to go into the tree and to do her task with the muddy toad. Which she does, and it's super gross.
Well, so this is important, right?
Okay.
The tree is dying.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It has a toad in its belly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, which is killing it.
Yes.
And she is tasked to go in and basically kill the toad, right? Like the way
with
that
3 stones or 3 gems
stones,
or
the way that Fawn or the book tells it is, it's kind of fantastical. You're doing a thing, but in reality, she's thinking about her dying mother, the tree, the toad, which is her child or her brother, and how she can get that toad not to kill her mom. Mm-hmm. Right? This is what she's kind of dreaming about.
And if you want to go one step
given
up,
medicine by the doctor too, so the stones represent that. Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
You could go one step up too from an adult perspective, and on a macro level again by saying the tree is Spain, the toad is Franco, that the three stones are the ideals that will lead to freedom, and the key would be return to the people, which would take back their country.
Damn, I didn't even think about that macro. That's pretty good, Jeff.
Macro shit. Jeff bringing that macro.
Jeff is the macro master.
Macro machines.
There's another level also. You could also say that the toad is representative of the rebels who are just eating, because what are they eating? They're eating bugs. It's like that's all they have. They have just gross shit. But it works better for it to be the fascist being in the tree, which is the tree being Spain. So anyway.
Yeah, because the toad is gluttonous, right? The toad
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, sucking away. But both of those things are kind of equal, right? Like the idea that the land or the physical mother is being sucked to death by the thing inside, and
right, or the baby who steals all the nutrition. From
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fucking cool stuff. Like it
is very cool.
It has another level that I didn't even realize, so that's cool. But yeah, as you mentioned, Jason, her dress does get muddy and she's late for dinner, which we've kind of talked about what happens there. Everyone's looking, not everyone, all of the women, the people who cook and Ophelia's mom are looking for her, but Ophelia's mom has to go to the dinner. And then at that point, I think we already kind of suspect that Mercedes is helping the rebels.
Yeah, we know because there's that scene earlier where the doctor, after the doctor treats the mom when she first arrives.
Yeah, he answered the envelope.
He's giving medication. You don't know that exactly what it is, but it's a small parcel of something to Mercedes.
Yeah, and I think by this point too, also the rations come too.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit later, but yeah,
I think it is a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But what happens here is what's her name, little girl?
Ophelia.
She sees that transaction.
Yes.
And Mercedes sees that transaction and kind of share a moment. It's kind of like, oh shit, I hope she doesn't say anything. But you also aren't really sure if she really knows what she saw, right?
Right.
But you do find out later that
this is
indeed know exactly what she saw.
She's a very observant girl because of what she puts together throughout the movie. Yep. But go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, I was going to say this is very similar because all three of us now have seen Gladiator 2. And both Gladiator movies had a scene where somebody on the inside wrecks a plan that is meant to basically be a plan into motion to help free to free them of a scenario. And so that's a whole other thing too, right? Like the idea that the worst thing that can happen is if a plan is rotted out by the inside out. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's, there's all sorts of that going on too, because I think all of those women who work in the kitchen at the farm, that's representative of growing feminism in this too, in this world and just in the world in general, where it's like, they're all seemingly on the same page with Mercedes, even though Mercedes and the doctor are the only two who are physically doing things.
They're the ones taking the risks, but
they know that her brother
emotionally and in a lot and probably other ways of what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think one of them at one point says something about her brother.
Yeah.
Pedro. So anyway, but that's a whole other layer on
everyone that works there probably lived in the town, probably still live in whatever town there still is. And they were all invaded basically. They were taken over by this regime, and the men who are fighting against it are probably, most of them are from that same area, right? So
probably both sides.
Yeah, so we're talking about the women who are kind of like hostage basically, and
they're stuck in the middle.
And the men are trying to like fight this fascism. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if you have fathers and sons.
Oh.
We lost you, Jeff, if you can hear us.
Yeah. That's all right. Jeff's talking. We'll fill some space. We can't hear Jeff.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. We lost Jeff.
You can't hear me.
Now
We can now.
That's so okay. That's weird because I could hear you the whole time. Anyway.
Okay. Well, weird. Well, yeah. Tell us what you're going to say.
Weird. So sorry about that. No, what I was going to say is also, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this was a situation where in some of these towns like this, you would have had these women's husbands and their sons on opposite sides of this fight too.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure like a lot of this was, like most Civil Wars, right?
Yeah.
You had a lot of that. Yeah. I would not be surprised. Yeah.
So anyway, continue.
There's already so much to dig into. They mercifully leave some threads unexplored.
Like I said, I was ready to unpeel this onion. This onion's got a lot of layers.
It does. But on the surface level, Mercedes has recently seen the plans to where they're going to place their armies to kind of triangulate the rebels. And at the dinner, something else is said that gives her pause. Like they're all like, we're going to kill everyone we have to. And she's like, oh fuck, I got to get out of here. And she goes outside with the lamp, and she is signaling into the trees to somebody with like a Morse code or whatever code she's using. And this is when Ophelia shows back up muddied and sees her again signaling or like doing something that's odd, right? So this girl is kind of omnipresent in this movie about all things, which is weird. It's almost like her real life is a dream too, because she knows everything. She's
just almost a specter in this movie, because to be seen, she has to conjure, in her imagination, an importance, because no one else regards her in any way of importance.
Right. So, yes. And she's always there, and people are apparently always there. And like more moments like that door moment earlier when she saw the transaction probably happen that we don't see.
Right.
Right. Like she's always in a corner, or she's always just off camera in the movie almost.
Yeah. Well, there's a big moment later in which she is never directly told something very, very important. She only has to, she can only infer the knowledge that somebody has died by watching two other people talk about it. She's never directly told what happens to her mother.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just floats in and out of these scenes. The only, she is very obviously the protagonist because she does all the important stuff, right? But when it comes to for her part of for the fairy tale part of the story, right? For the reality part of the story, she is just kind of floating like probably a lot of kids in these types of turmoil situations.
It's like Mercedes and I always forget her name.
Ophelia.
They kind of mirror each other.
They're very intertwined.
Yes. And I would argue they're dual protagonists in this movie.
Sure. Because Ophelia has the fairy tale side, and Mercedes has the actual adult dealing with the muck. Ophelia is dealing with the muck of the underworld. The muck of the overworld, the actual civil war, is being handled by Mercedes.
Yes, and I think Ophelia, because of the way this movie represents her relationship with Mercedes, it doesn't tell you outright that she's idolizing this woman too.
Sure.
But I think she is, and she's seen her, like we see in the second quest, wrap the knife in her apron multiple times, and she's like, knives are important. I should have a knife, right? And that is her second quest, is to go get a knife.
She's got to go get the dagger from Mitch McConnell. So,
oh my God, that's Mitch McConnell.
It is. It's the greatest performance Mitch McConnell's ever done.
So yeah, her second quest, and this is represented in the movie a lot in the real world, is to go to draw a door on her wall, basically, right? Well, I don't know. Do we really need to talk about, she has to be separated from her mother because her mother is dying. She has to have her own room now.
Yes.
And she gets her own room, and in the middle of the night, Pan shows up, or the fawn shows up, and the fawn is like, here's your second quest. We need you to go into this place. You're going to see lots of good food. You cannot touch the food.
You may not partake.
You may not partake. It's a matter of life and death. So this is like related to the rations room, where all the food is and everything is stored. Like, it's forbidden fruit, right? It's forbidden fruit.
Well, we know that the doctor has already taken from the forbidden fruit,
and we know that the guardian of the forbidden fruit is evil, right? He's the wicked stepfather, and of course she wants to defy that, right?
Yes. In further connection to the first story is the fact that there's a storeroom key where all these rations are, that there's supposed to be just one of, but Mercedes, it's obvious when she gives him the key, she has her own, right?
Well, it was also her job to have that key originally too.
Yes, but it's also what Ophelia has to get in the first quest. So more like connection to Mercedes part of the story, right? Like, Ophelia is idolizing her and trying to kind of dreaming through her a little bit. But yeah, her job this time is to draw a door on a wall, enter, and she has 60 seconds, which I don't know if the people in the woods are going to come down and steal all the rations. How long do they have to get away with it? Not very long.
Not very long, because there's a lot of guys at that.
There's a lot of guys.
A lot of guys on that farm. And there's a lot of guys who are going to be taking stuff from that farm. Once again, on the macro, on the adult level, taking too much from the evil fascist government makes you complicit, and it will slowly kill you too, because you're going to kind of wrap yourself up into that.
You'll be part of it.
You'll become well, not just part of it, you'll become dependent on it.
Yeah.
Which is something, of course, that, that's why some of that benevolence is handed out by the fascist government to draw the weak in, and then try to build their number and build their strength around that.
Yeah, because while this is going, they're giving good bread to the people that are on the farm. And they're like, this is what you will get.
And this is from Federico Franco himself. Yeah.
You will not go
Francisco.
without.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah. So it's all that same, again, it's the what Ophelia sees and what maybe an adult would see,
Right.
I'm sorry. While you guys have been talking, I've been kind of ruminating on the fact that her character's name is Ophelia, but spelled differently. But Ophelia is, Hamlet's sister, I think.
Yes.
And it's very interesting because Ophelia's death is a very big deal in Hamlet. In the story and in just the history of writing.
Right.
So I'm just there's no coincidence here that Del Toro has named this character Ophelia, but given her a different spelling.
No, the amount of intertwining of past fairy tales and significant writing and all that is not Del Toro is a well-read dude for sure.
Oh, he knows.
And he connects it brilliantly here in a way that you're kind of I'm seeing these touches of this stuff, but it is not what this is. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm using, it's almost like he's using fairy tale as allegory, like a different allegory.
He's kind of sprinkling lots of different elements of famous fairy tales and stories, archetypal stories, into his own story, and
To help paint the picture.
and using all of those perceptions to paint the picture. Yeah,
it's kind of astounding, really. Like, I don't know how. Well, maybe people do consider this his masterpiece, but I'm like, damn, this fucking movie is getting its shit right. Jeff's just over there shaking his head. You got anything to add there, Jeff?
he's nodding. Like,
Nope.
He's
you got it. To kind of close the loop on talking about the writing job. This was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, but lost to Little Miss Sunshine.
That's interesting.
it did win the Golden Globe for writing.
It also lost Best Foreign Film Movie, which, considering how many critics had this listed in their top three, it's kind of amazing that it didn't get more than just. But it did win some Oscars, like,
Art direction, cinematography.
yeah.
Yeah,
The ones, yeah.
If it didn't win for that, I'd be blown away. It still looks better than some shit I'm seeing today.
The Little Miss Sunshine thing is unfortunate. I can kind of understand why, knowing how the Academy votes for things.
Yeah.
It was a much more feel-good story. It was kind of a surprise hit.
It is smartly written.
It's a good movie. I'm not
it's a fine
denying
movie
it at all.
But this one is
no way, shape, or form.
It's not in the same league.
The emotional depth, the thematic
Right.
depth of this movie.
Maybe the Academy didn't have subtitles, so they didn't understand.
Well, that probably didn't help it.
Probably. I mean, you got to wait another 10 years for subtitles to be considered cool for Best Picture.
Right.
But it did win the Golden Globe, which the foreign press generally, they're more hip to
The subtitles.
subtitles. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're more hip to other languages.
Yeah, they're
way too
right.
centric over here.
they're not so xenophobic, those foreigners.
Yeah, fucking foreigners. I'm kidding.
All of them.
That's not
This is
obvious.
Jeff. That's Jeff thinking that.
Hey man, I ain't got nothing against Mexico here today. I ain't got nothing against them here.
But anyway,
What would
Ophelia.
best foreign language? Because that to me should have been a shoo-in, right?
It was bringing it up. Hang on a second.
Bringing it up at the Barry Gibb Talk Show.
I'm almost there too. Oh, it was the Lives
The Lives of Others. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's not this.
I think this is a movie that is so ahead of its time that it almost makes sense that people like discounted some of its brilliance. And if you're an Academy voter, like, how much time do you really devote to breaking down what the movie is really telling you and not just what you've seen?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Because a lot of the brilliance in this movie
what you
is
don't get on the actual watch, you're probably not really digging into after the fact.
Yes. Or even thinking about, because you got to go to the next fucking movie, like whatever. But anyway, Ophelia's second task, she fails because she does eat the grapes from the
And the fairies,
dude. Doug Jones as Mitch McConnell, like
just looming.
lurching his way like down the. Oh, it's so creepy.
Yeah, she has 3 of her reformed fairies, and Mitch McConnell eats 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it's like
Mitch
these
McConnell
are.
eats fairies for breakfast.
It sure does.
And this character
He
is
does,
probably
public.
more
He does.
famous- This character is probably more famous than the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
This is the
absolutely.
endearing image of this movie.
Yes.
right. Him putting the hands or the eyes in his hands and putting them over his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what cool fucking design. I don't like it as much as Pan, honestly. But
Well, that's fair. Pan is so much more complicated looking.
yeah, but it's
Like this-
so cool.
Yeah.
But yes, so the sleeping Mitch McConnell, or whatever you want to call him,
Pale
he's
man.
not even,
It's the
not
pale
even
man.
human, is what Pan says.
Yes.
Whatever is in there is not even human.
Not even him, but that tracks. Yep.
That tracks on all levels. And he also is known for eating children.
Yes.
Again, we have this is another avatar for fascism, right? Because it's, you don't eat from my table.
It's also Hansel and Gretel. Again,
Yep.
another
Yep.
fairy tale that's, yeah.
And again, it's like the inhuman. I mean, he goes out of his way to say this is not human. So that's a big Del Toro theme, is the inhumanity of fascism, right? So it's all right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Del Toro's antagonists are always inhuman in some way, shape, or form. Michael Shannon in Shape of Water is, as being human, is horrifically inhuman.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, the most inhuman thing in this movie is human.
Yep.
With,
Yep.
But
yeah,
anyway.
I mean, and that kind of is the worst sting of all, is that the inhumanity, the true inhumanity, is within ourselves.
Yeah, it's the people.
Like, and that's terrifying, right?
It is terrifying.
There's no monster that's more scary than that.
Right. She isn't afraid of the monster and what's going to happen there because she eats, but she also gets a knife, which is important. It's symbolic of what Mercedes has been hiding in her apron. And it's also important later to two characters, which is like foreshadowing. This is definitely a Chekhov's thing, right? Along with the knife that Mercedes keeps rolling up into her.
Yes, that chief among them. Yeah.
Yes, chief among them, for sure. And what I'm sure Ophelia had seen her do. She had to have seen her do it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, and also, just again, going back to like the macro level, when the fairies are trying to warn her, don't eat, he's coming, don't eat, he's coming, and she keeps swatting them away. That's also the idea of if we accept kindness, and swat away you better not do that. You better, the ideas from somebody else saying you probably shouldn't do that. And we swat that, we become complicit, or we undo ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And I think that there's a lot of that happening right now in our current country.
Oh boy, are there lots of leopards feasting on faces right now. Yep.
Yes. But yes, very good observation. I 100% agree. But yeah, so she's failed, but we don't know that she's technically failed because it looks like she gets away and she's got the knife.
Yeah, she gets back into her room. And this is also, I
love the like drawing with chalk and making doorways. I just love that stuff.
Well, that's like very Beetlejuice, right?
Yeah, it's just, that's the real true, like kind of like just childish, ticklish sort of fairy tale stuff that I just,
it's like
tangible aspect that I can draw these portholes for myself.
Going back to Narnia, it's finding the world inside of something that shouldn't be.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
And it's the idea of the secret garden. All of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
It's also around this time that we do that. The fawn does find out that Ophelia's mother's sick. And he says, here you go. Here's a mandrake root. Go, you gotta feed it blood, but put it under her bed. And as she does, not only does the mandrake turn into like a little Muppet baby. hold. I mean, we're going to wish we're going to see that next week. But anyway, there should always be a little mandrake Muppet. But her mother in like very quickly, recovers. And like when the doctor provides that news to the captain's like, yeah, great, whatever. What about the kid?
Yeah.
To which he even says, like, what about my son? He's like, can I ask you why you think it's a son? And he's like, get the fuck out of here.
He's like, don't fuck with
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
the doctor challenges the captain in
a lot
of like not so subtle and subtle ways, right?
Well, that's again the language of fascism, of rejecting science and rejecting knowledge to for your own ends. Yeah.
But he also, the captain recognizes that he needs the doctor, but he doesn't quite connect the fact that there's only so many things a doctor can do, right? Like he has these really odd expectations. It's like time. So if she doesn't make it, you get the sense that he's not gonna make it either, or the baby doesn't make it, I should say.
Right.
But ultimately,
it doesn't really matter in the long run.
Yeah. He makes a decision.
Yeah. So so they So anyway, so that has happened also. So the mom is on her way back to health, seemingly. But when the fawn returns to say, "Hey, where's my dagger?" And he's like, "Well," or Ophelia's like, "Well, there was an accident." He's like, "Well, what do you mean an accident?" And she reveals that there's only one fairy, and the fairy tells the fawn, "Yeah, she ate those fucking grapes," and he flips out. He's like, "You are banished. You are not to return. You did not follow the rules. You did the one thing I told you not to do." And
which is interesting because to me, like watching this it's been the first time since I've seen it in a while. I've started getting the vibes that Pan was in it more for himself than he was to test Ophelia, right? I don't know. I was just getting like that vibe that he's trying to use her to get what he wants, right? She even questions him at one time. It's like, how am I supposed to? Why should I trust you, right?
Well, that's coming up as far as like bring the baby. It's like,
but she challenges that earlier.
Sure.
Because even before the first task. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of us, but Pan is the literal internal anguish that she's having over what is going on in the movie. So whenever she's arguing with Pan, she's arguing with herself.
Yeah.
With herself.
Yeah.
So having those like, this isn't right or this isn't good is like, or the opposite. Like if she's breaking the rules, like Pan kind of fluctuates based on what Ophelia is doing.
And he's giving her decision points, right? Yeah.
Right. But her decisions, if they're immoral, he's moral. If they're moral, he's immoral. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
He's something of her conscience.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And like it's her own purity being tested here.
Yes.
So he does try at times, like you say, at times when she's moral, he's kind of immoral. Well, it's he's the moral thing, right? But at the same time, he could also be the whatever it takes to do the right thing, right? Like, what is your conscience telling you is the right thing to do, despite what the perceived moral or right thing to do is. There is kind of a little bit of that too, I think.
I did say, and I agree with that. And I think like another representation of him is the angel and the devil that sit on your shoulder.
Yep. Yeah. Because sometimes like when those are things that are represented, you think about things like that. Sometimes they're seemingly self-serving too, right?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she like, because she failed, because she had the mistake, Pan is like, you're never going to see us again. You fucked up. Basically, we're done. And the way, like, I can't even describe how he slinks into the shadows in that scene, but it blows me away. There's only one scene I like better, probably not scene, but like shot.
Yeah.
I might know what shot you're talking about. It's fucking beautiful.
This is the beauty of the combination of Guillermo del Toro and Doug Jones, right? Like they like when they're together.
Is this the first time they worked together?
No.
Did they work together in Kronos?
No,
Hellboy was before this.
He was already Abe Sapien. Yeah,
that's right. Hellboy was the first time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What's next? What's the third or anything we have to cover before?
So basically this is when all the wheels start to fall off because she goes back to check on the Mandrake root and it too seemingly is dying. So, but she's able to, like basically she's checking on it and, the stepdad comes in and discovers that she's under the bed. And he's like, what are you putting under the bed? What is this nonsense? You, woman, allow her to read this foolish, fairy tale, which of course is rejecting anything that provides hope. Another language of fascism.
Also, anything that can hide, allegory, metaphor. Yeah.
Yep. And just to think beyond yourself too, sometimes, right? But anyway, it's so he convinces the mother is also convinced that maybe this is one thing that can help kind of maybe the last ditch effort thing of saying, hey, your stepdad, your new father doesn't like you. You need to be liked. So I need, you cannot believe in this crap anymore, and throws the mandrake baby into the fire, which it starts to scream. That's great.
So a question here. I don't know if it's appropriate or if it even matters, but this is the one real thing she takes, or is like goes from the fantasy world to the real world, because everyone sees the mandrake root.
Yeah.
Should we just assume that she went and dug it up or found it out in
Probably,
the woods
yeah,
or something? Because it's the one real item that everyone sees from her imagination.
It's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah, because it even looks it even looks different when the adults are holding it, right? Like it's very
it hasn't unfurled into the
exactly
Muppet baby.
Yeah, exactly. It looks more like a like a root, like a real root, not like arms and legs and all of that stuff. But yeah, so I would assume that she probably just found it in the woods and knew about it, or something from the stories that she told. And was like,
she read Harry Potter.
Yeah, or I don't know, or
like some kind of ancient mythology. Yeah,
like she's she knows a guy. She knows a guy named Guillermo del Toro in town, and he says, "You know what that's good for? Making your mom okay."
It made me look if the mandrake root like grows in Spain, and it does. So she could have gone and got it,
but
does
grow in Spain. Yeah.
Yes,
it
was interesting
mandrake?
to me that it was represented in reality.
Yeah,
like because nobody else sees what she sees.
Is mandrake edible?
I think it's poisonous.
I think it's a hallucinogen.
Oh,
yeah.
Now we get it.
Hallucinogen.
Yeah, okay.
She was just taking mandrake.
She's just eating mandrake. It's like, this is cool, man.
It has been used for anesthesia.
Sure.
It is medicinal too. Yeah.
It has medicinal properties, but
it's probably got, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like some old school, like Romani medicine type
stuff. Here's an interesting thing. It says when taken internally in large doses, it was said to excite delirium and madness. So that pretty much describes Ophelia and Hamlet.
Yeah. So maybe she is just munching mandrake root.
Maybe, our Ophelia is a little bit of a mandrake junkie.
Yeah. a mandranky.
I wanted so much more from her.
I just actually another one of those sprinkles, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Is, yeah.
Just another one of those sprinkles. It's all a little bit of layer.
I mean,
you need a lot of spices to make a
history. Yeah,
you need a lot of spices to make a good dish, and he's a lot in this one.
Yep.
It's almost like over seasoned a little bit, but
no, not at all. Let me put more in there, man. Put more.
Enough.
Give me more seasoning. Anyway, I have Hellboy show up.
He didn't add too much cayenne to the soup like I did the other day.
Oh no!
It was bad.
It was your big debut, though.
That's real hard to dilute, man.
Yeah, I've accidentally gotten the cayenne and the seasoned salt mixed up one time.
Oh no!
Oh boy! It's not good. It's not good.
Susan did that once. That was fun.
Yeah,
and the chili.
They look so much alike.
Oh my gosh! She mixed up the measurement for chili powder and cayenne.
Oof.
So that was inedible.
That's why seasoning packets are often okay.
Yeah, see,
somebody pre-measured that shit for you, and your drunk ass can't fuck it up.
Anyway, so basically, as soon as the mandrake root burns up, Ophelia grabs her book, runs into the bathroom, opens it up, and all of a sudden you see a bloody uterus.
Yeah.
And what happens in the bedroom? The mother doubles over. She's bleeding profusely. It's not good. Now, before this, though, during this, there's another problem going on, because one of the things that happened was that some of the rebels were captured.
Yeah.
And some of the one of the rebels, a stuttering kind of sad sack, is being tortured by the captain, who talks about how close they're going to become with each tool that he begins to use on him.
That's terrifying.
It is.
Oh man.
And it probably happened.
That scene,
well, I'm sure.
And then the next time he does it are just perfect.
It is. It's fucking perfect.
Yeah.
We did skip over the rabbit. We did skip over the rabbit hunters.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, basically
Because
he just assumed they were rebels, killed them, and they were telling the truth. They were hunting rabbits. It just
and then he blamed another guy.
And it's he blamed one of his soldiers. It's just another example. The very first really true example of his violence, his willingness to inflict, not violence, and his sadism, right? Like he's not a guy who leaves the dirty stuff to his underlings. This is a guy who's going to brutally beat a man to death and not feel bad about it.
I just have to say I was shocked by the on-screen showing of that dude's face
getting
beaten in legitimately. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Well, I had like American History X flashbacks.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, and this is going back to the language of fascism. He is paranoid, and then he blames somebody else.
Yep.
All in one scene.
Yep.
And
brutally murders without any
remorse and empathy. Yeah.
And when he realizes that they were innocent, he doesn't care because these people are beneath him anyway. Beneath him,
or could potentially be turned into an enemy.
Sure. Yeah.
If they're not already on our side,
not explicitly on my side, then you're not on my side. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we already saw that. So we know that those tools that he's threatening the stuttering guy with, he's gonna use them, and he's gonna take glee in it. And because he does have somebody of that group that he's been so hungrily going after and trying to fight against. I mean, this is like, holy shit, coach, put me in. I'm ready. Let's do this. Is his whole attitude at this point. And so he eventually discovers that there's an inside informant that's been giving them help, giving them information, giving them supplies. And he also discovers that there's a vial of medicine that was in possession of this guy that looks an awful lot like the vials of medicine that they have.
The antibiotics that the doctor has.
Yep.
He called in to resuscitate this guy whose hand he fucking split in half.
Yeah.
Jesus. And
so he euthanizes that guy.
And he's like, he recognizes the bottle and he kept the antibiotic bottle from earlier. And he's like, hey, you talk to him. I'm going to go check some shit out. And he goes up and compares the bottles and realizes there's the same bottle. And he makes the doctor, basically, he makes him as a supporter of the people in the woods.
And this is where the doctor really kind of stands up for himself too, because he comes in, sees the guy, and he's like, I'm going to take your pain away. And he euthanizes the guy.
The guy says, please kill me now.
Yes.
Like that scene, and if you can count to 3 without stuttering, like it's just fucking, it's tragic and beautiful.
Yeah.
And
all at the same time.
It's just so heartbreaking. Like this,
it is.
It's this just any way possible to not just inflict violence, but break your psyche, right? Like it's again, just the brutality of fascism and how it's not just concerned with bending you to its will. It's also wanting to break you down.
Yeah. And
I'm going to do a smart one here. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a small person wanting to belittle somebody that is loved by somebody else.
Yeah.
So
I don't have the same kind of knowledge you guys do to like connect these dots. But the fact that when El Capitan comes back and the doctor walks out, he shoots him in the back.
Yeah.
It's like the death of medicine, the death of science, the death of anything that we can rely on that has real, true proof.
Value. Yeah.
Value.
Or proof or value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and this is, and again, this shows the insecurity and the smallness of a fascist, which is the doctor stands up to him to his face. He says because he says, why did you disobey me? Why did you not keep that person alive? And the doctor basically is like, I can't, to follow rules blindly like you do
without questioning.
That's something that people like you will do.
Yeah.
And he walks away from him. And that's just like, at that point, the doctor's dead.
Sure.
Absolutely.
He knows he's dead.
He knows he's dead, but he had his moment and he stood up to the fascist to his face. And the fascist does what the fascist does, which is shoot him in the back.
Yep.
But he does it at his own peril almost.
Well, this is his biggest mistake.
Absolutely, because here comes the baby, and the mother's in bad way, and so he has to have like essentially a field butcher come in to deliver a baby, which is only going to save probably the baby.
Right, one or the other.
Well, he doesn't care about the wife, but at the same time, like the doctor might have been able to save both.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yes.
The only reason that this is a loss is because it's preferable to have a mother rear the child, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be more inconvenient now. But it's already been determined by when he shot the doctor that he's perfectly fine with those inconveniences.
Sure. I mean, because he'll give it to Mercedes. He'll just give it to Mercedes.
Right. Exactly.
I want to say
he'll find some wet nurse. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say two things here. One, what is kind of brilliant with the doctor dying is you assume for sure Mercedes is going to die.
Yeah.
Not another character, right? Like it's Mercedes that's going to die, which it is a little bit of a twist coming up here. What actually happens? Like I've read that people say there's no twist in this movie. I'm like, there kind of is. Really, it's leading you down one path and not the one because it turns out that Mercedes ends up becoming the hope for the future, right?
Right.
Yes. And the second thing is like women are so discounted in the fascist
that you never see them coming.
Yep.
Right. You never see the women coming, and they're also the most oppressed. And there's race relations that we can bring into this, like in a different era of time. But women are very oppressed by fascists, which is
it's the number one thing they want to oppress.
They're a commodity.
Yeah. Well, we want to control you. We want to control your body. We want to control.
It's happening right fucking now. Like,
well, I'm trying to allude to it without saying it.
But it's amazing. Like, it is truly amazing that it is happening before our eyes. You see the tweets, your body, my choice bullshit, right?
Yeah.
It's like it is happening again, in the words of the man from another place in Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's just astounding.
It's mind blowing
that the people who are in it don't see it or are blind to it for some reason,
but
or don't care. Yeah,
they don't care. They're also populists who worry about who is going to feed the world people.
But they fell for faux populism, right?
Right. But they do worry about that. Like
sure.
Like women need to go home.
Was stolen from them when
right.
Sanders didn't win the Democratic nomination. That's just a fact. I mean, sorry I had to devolve this, but we're living under the specter of that now. Mm-hmm. Like we're getting what we deserved in some ways because.
Well, also, we are also very, very, very much, and this was absolutely the case in the early 20th century, we are now paying for too long of the status quo of just keeping things as steady and as unexciting as possible.
Yeah.
Well, that makes people very, very tired and very unwilling to keep that.
I mean, I think it's, in some ways, I think it's interesting that we're recording this episode on almost the day that a very high-ranking, like a CEO of a huge healthcare company, was murdered in New York City yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, without getting into the morality of that, there's something in the psyche of our country that's breaking through there, that is frustrated with all of our choices politically, and that it's going to be interesting. I think it's a flashpoint. I hope it's not violent, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't know how to add to that. So I'll just say...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went off on a tangent, but...
No, it's fine because this movie is like alluding to those things.
Well, it's warning people that history always repeats itself. These
Exactly
times will always come back around.
That's what I was going to say.
And you can only repress this for so long. It's gonna crack. It's gonna create chaos. There's gonna be violence.
There's going to be fascism. There's going to be freedom. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. And it's going to keep happening. I don't know how humanity ever erases that cycle. Nobody has solved that.
Skynet will take care of it.
Yes, Skynet will. It won't be humanity. It will be the robots.
Yeah, it'll be the AI. We should have never let it out of the box.
Thank you, Uncle Mark.
Oh
boy.
Okay. So anyway, let's get back to it.
We're pretty much in now the final stretch here, right? Because the mother has died. Eventually, so Mercedes is like, hey, the doctor's dead. Your mom's dead. Everything is not going great. I need to leave. And she gets captured, but in his hubris of capturing yet another insider, he does not check her over and does not realize that, oh no, she's still got a knife tucked away. She can undo her straps and she's going to cut a bitch.
It's so perfect because it is first she like puts, kind of throws it in his face that he never suspected her. She was invisible to him. And he was like, I see you've uncovered my sin of my one fault, my sin of pride or whatever it is, right? At the same time, he's doing it again. He's still underestimating her. He still doesn't see her. He thinks
he's doing the three things, but it's with
unreal.
His back to her.
And with his back to her, yes.
And unlike he was doing to a stuttering nincompoop earlier, right? Nincompoop, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, while he's going through that diatribe that he has about his three things, his three weapons that are going to make her talk, she cuts herself out of her ropes. Stabs him in the back, stabs him in the shoulder, gives him a Joker smile, and says, "Don't touch the girl, or I will come back and gut you."
It wouldn't be the
first time.
I wouldn't be the first time I gutted a pig.
Yes.
Fuck, that's awesome.
Yes, that's my hero. That's Ophelia's hero.
Yeah.
Yes. It's what Ophelia wants to be, and it because she's just as invisible.
Yeah.
But
she doesn't have the agency or the capacity to be her.
But she is a representation of Mercedes. That's what's interesting. Like it's like layered.
Oh yeah.
Representation, right?
Oh, like, it could very well. I mean, here's another macro idea that Ophelia and Mercedes
doesn't exist.
That they're one and the same, but that Mercedes is looking back on the loss of her innocence.
Sure.
The child dead at the foot of a war. Yeah, but she's just, it's kind of that seeing yourself in the mirror, seeing the same things happen, and
I do kind of see them as the same person, but not the same person. So I'm with you.
And there's something, we kind of jumped to it, but there's something so beautiful about Ophelia's death in the realm of the fairy tale, right? That is like that glimmer of hope that those hold on to when they're living under fascism, right?
Yeah.
Like that Should we even talk about this now?
Well, yeah, I mean, because what ends up basically happening is that, Mercedes heads off, finds her brother, but not before she's almost caught and killed by Vidal's men. But her brother's men kind of pop up out of and basically snipe them all, like in some sharpshooting.
Their reinforcements came. Yeah.
Yeah. And because they've been waiting for reinforcements to come from another part of Spain for a long time. They've arrived, and they're fucking awesome with a gun, because things get a little hairy, but they don't hit her. But they shoot all the other guys dead, basically, and they're like, let's go get that motherfucker now. But in the meantime, the Fawn has returned and has learned, hey, what's gone on, and he's like, hey, I'll give you another chance. Bring your brother to the labyrinth, and it'll be all right. It'll be good. It'll be all right. And she's like, okay. So she basically steals away with her brother, and
while drugging.
She drugs the captain yes,
with her mom's bottle of sedatives.
Yes,
basically.
And so she's headed to the labyrinth with Captain Vidal behind her. It's a little Shining, right? He's kind of limping along like Jack Torrance
a little bit.
And she gets to the Fawn, and he's like, okay, well, the blood of the innocent will open the we'll open the labyrinth, so toss your brother in. Let's do it. And she's like, no.
Well, he's got the knife that she secured.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, what are you doing with the knife, basically?
And he's just like, just a pinprick.
Yeah, only takes a drop. Only takes a drop. It's like,
we're not going to get...
Yeah. But when the captain shows up, really important, Ophelia is not talking to anyone. Through his eyes, she's not speaking to the Fawn.
But anyway, so in this moment, right, we know Ophelia is, whatever is happening in her mind doesn't exist, right? So
or it is something, or it really is happening and the adults can't. They don't have the innocence to see it. It could go either way, but I think
she is, at this point is like, do I commit revenge against this man and kill my little brother?
Mm-hmm.
Like, take away the one thing he wanted. Because it's the only thing she can impact.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she can't go kill him. She can't go...
Well, she can't go topple the Franco party.
She can't go topple the Franco party, right. Yeah. The only thing she can really do at this moment is take away his son.
Yeah.
Which is the heir to everything he has. Again, going back to the pan kind of being the moral, immoral, depending on where her compass is, she decides, no, I can't sacrifice this child to ruin this man's life. Right? So she says no. And like you said, the captain is walking in all drugged up with his gun, and he shoots her.
Yeah.
Takes the kid and he shoots her.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. It is questionable whether it's real or not, but it's not real in my mind.
No. Yeah, because I think we've already established that what she wants is the dream world, right?
Yes. And the fact that he sees that she's just talking to herself is affirmation of that for the viewer.
Well, absolutely, because, because her blood is what drips into the labyrinth, and we see her then reunited with the king and queen, her mother. So she's obviously kind of going into almost like a heaven-like scenario. And the Fawn is there saying, you made the right choice. I was just fucking with you. It's like it was your life instead of the innocent was the most important thing, which is also an allegory for like the fighting against the oppression.
Well, I have two things about that. It's the inversion of the bargain between God and Abraham over Isaac, right? God demanded that Abraham kill his son Isaac to prove his loyalty. And he was going to do it, and then the angel intervened and said, you've proven enough. You don't have to actually do it, which is bullshit. I've always pissed me off. This is a much better version of that. It's like, well, why can't I just sacrifice myself, right? If I sacrifice myself instead of the innocent, that's a much more powerful devotion, right?
And God's like, oh, no, we can't have this be a cult.
Yeah. But then the other part of this is it's the fact that a child, there's something more innocent than that, which is a newborn. Because she's been born into this war and she's seen so much violence, and she isn't innocent anymore. But she's still
not because of her own actions,
but because
of what she's seen.
But because of what she's seen, right? She has been clinging on to a childhood through her imagination and through
her books.
Her books, but in reality, she's no longer innocent, and that's like so heartbreaking.
It is very heartbreaking, but yes.
But that's I think that's what Del Toro is saying. That this is what happens. Like,
yeah, that's life.
And that's what her mom was even telling her earlier when she burned the mandrake. And it's just like, but it shouldn't be that way, right?
There are things you will understand later in life. Like, no,
she gets it now. She just is trying to not have to live that reality.
Yeah. So I will say two things quickly. The one shot I really loved, because Mercedes had walked into the woods a couple times and talked about how she's seen things or hearing things, excuse me. And this time she's holding an umbrella.
Yes, I knew this was the shot. Yeah.
She's holding an umbrella and she's like, I heard something. No, everything's okay. And she puts the umbrella down and El Capitan is there
with all her. It's like the way she swings it too. That's perfectly executed. It's unreal. Yeah.
It's so good.
Capitan and his manner right there, behind the umbrella. Oh,
it's a very good filmmaking right there. Yes. Very good.
It's masterpiece kind of stuff, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that in this movie, swooping, awesome shit. I don't remember what my other thing was, so somebody else go ahead.
So basically, the captain takes the child, comes out of the labyrinth. Yep. Mercedes and her brother Pedro are waiting for him, and and she's like, all right, you're going to give me the baby. And he's like, okay, but just let her know, or let my son know what time it was that I died and all of that stuff. And she's just like, no, he's not going to know your name. He's not even going to know you fucking exist, basically.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then just shoots him dead. And it's like
perfect. Yeah. It's the perfect revenge. Yeah.
It's the perfect way to defeat a fascist, to make sure that they realize they're forgotten.
They're erased.
You don't have a legacy.
Yeah. You don't have nothing.
You don't get to have one of those. Yeah.
You don't get anything. You lose. And then she goes in and finds Ophelia and weeps for her, not realizing that Ophelia is getting kind of what she wants in the long run. She gets a happy ending of sorts.
I hate it.
I don't
hate it. I don't like it.
But I think it's more. Here's what I think it is. This is the way I think about it. Is what Ophelia represents in that moment is everything these revolutionaries are fighting for.
Sure.
Right? And that's like the beauty of that final line where it says, the princess will be visible only to those who know where to look, right? So those who are not blinded by fascism, those who know what beauty really is. And that's what she represents in the end, is the beauty and freedom that they're striving to regain and find within themselves, within humanity, and then just, in their lives to overthrow this oppressive force that they're.
I was going to ask why I should not like her actually being accepted into her subconscious, right? Obviously, it's what she sees as she dies.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? But you answered it. just then, like the beauty of what she represents is what matters, not.
Yep. And that's her legacy.
Right.
She has a legacy.
Yes.
And the fascist does
not. Right. But it also ties back to the beginning of she's returned home.
Yeah.
The idea that she's the whole, she is, whether it's Ophelia or Princess Moana, she is basically the sun in the sky for something, for somebody, whether it's the father or the,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she's kind of like Anne Frank. She is the, right? Like
she's going to get that in death, but herself, I mean, she is.
Well, Anne Frank didn't have anything before death either, really, in the realm of like legacy.
Right. But she is peaceful at the end because she is getting, she is, when I say that she kind of gets a happy end, she gets to see the thing that she wanted all this time to see.
She could see that at any time though. So I think her death and her after moment there is more for the hope of the universe than it is for anything she got. But
I mean, if you believe in an afterlife, it could be, her reuniting with her parents. It's weird that her mom has her son with her, though. I think that's strange, just because it doesn't logically make sense.
Well, why is her mom even there with the king? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but
because the mom was never brought up, right? It was always the king.
I think I think it is sort of she's still in that disassociation, even in death, right? So it's her brain trying to make sense of the worst trauma.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also, I mean, if you kind of think about it, it's like her birth into the world. If you go all the way back to the beginning, to that opening monologue, her birth into the world is probably represented by the death of her father, right?
Sure.
Well,
and that she's holding on to, and she's trying to hold on to her memory of him, but it's fading and it's going, and so, yeah, I mean, she's got a lot of trauma here.
One more thing I want to mention, and I think it does kind of go along with that remembering your father and cyclical shit, like we will repeat our mistakes, is that they show her dad laying over the thing in the fountain or whatever you want to call it, the well.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and the blood is that they show coming out of her mouth and her nose at the end is going back in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of representing the cyclical nature. Like, this will happen. We will rinse or soak up and repeat this same bullshit. Right? Like her seeping the blood back into her nose and mouth and stuff. It's pretty good stuff. Man.
It's really good stuff. It's incredibly powerful filmmaking.
And to add that, like, it is a modern fairy tale that is told through old fairy tale.
Yeah. I mean, I think isn't it kind of the case? I think probably, like, most fairy tales of throughout the centuries, throughout history of humanity, have probably built upon one another.
Well, yeah, and it's like what you brought up earlier that seemed maybe disconnected, and then I expounded upon was the use of a different thing when you're talking about sleep paralysis, like UFOs or Pan or whatever. Like, that shit keeps happening and it keeps getting attributed to something else, but it's all the same
in the zeitgeist.
But it's all the same monster.
Right.
It's all the same monster.
It's different ways of explaining it, living with it, dealing with it. Yeah.
Pretty wild.
It is.
Good pick, Jason, for Christmas,
pretty
buddy.
Remarkable things. I know. I mean, I knew this would be a good discussion, but I'm sorry it wasn't Christmassy.
I'm good with it.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
It's not like next week is Christmas week, but next week has a spirit of the holidays.
There is a happy spirit, at least. There's no dead children at the end of it. There's no fascism going on in it.
No.
I mean,
We'll talk about
and
that.
Paul Williams is there.
And Paul Williams is there. Yeah.
So, and anyway, next week, Christmas Day, we're going to watch the Muppet movie. Now, you may be wondering, hey, it's Christmas Day. Why not a Muppet Christmas Carol? And I'm like,
Right.
well, let's not jump all the way to the fourth movie in a series, all right? Let's just do the
Muppet 4 Christmases from now. Just wait.
Yeah. So, Critters Miss becomes Muppet Miss.
That is one of the better Muppet movies, though.
Well, sure, but
Yeah.
but the Muppet movie is my favorite, and I picked it, and I'm going to do
it.
Whether you guys are or not, I'm doing it.
It's the Superman of Muppet movies in a lot of ways.
It is. I mean, it deserves to be discussed, and like Jeff said, he picked it. But yeah, it is funny, like you said, Jeff, that we're not doing the Muppet Christmas movie.
On Christmas.
It's just funny.
But we're gonna take it back to the origin story.
Yes.
Michael Caine once said that was one of the most fun he'd ever had on a movie.
I can't imagine why.
I think Michael Caine once said, "Some men just want to watch the world burn."
Yeah. Some men just want to watch the Muppet burn. Yes, and that is me. So next week on Christmas, we come sit around the fire for Merry Muppets Miss, and we're going to watch the Muppet movie, and we're going to have a good old time.
Yeah.
It's got songs that are just fantastic in it.
Yes, it does.
It's got cameos out the wazoo. It's just great.
It is.
It's just great.
It's been a minute since I've seen it, so I'm excited.
There you go. See,
Let's talk about that next week.
we will. So Christmas Day, check out the Muppet movie. We'll rinse ourselves of the blood that was on our hands this week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. And I mean, we were going to talk about this movie eventually. I wasn't going to let Guillermo del Toro go that long, but anyway, here we go. So go to filmseizure.com. That's where you can find the episode. That's where you can find all the places you can follow us, all the good stuff. Do that. This upcoming Monday, on Monster Mondays, at all of the same places, the filmseizure.com and all of the whatnots, I have Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire.
Nice.
So, hey, a little bit more Dane Stevens.
A little power glove for that ass.
A little power glove.
Stevens.
Yep, Wingard. We got Stevens. We got Barrett. They're all here.
Yep.
And they're bringing their buddies, Godzilla, King Kong. Spoiler alert: Mothra, Chimo, and that ugly looking ape fucker that. And the little ape that Kong uses as a club in the scene is fucking great. Anyway, you guys should watch it if you haven't. He uses a child Kong as a weapon at one point. It's fucking hilarious. Anyway, so anyway, that's this Monday on Monster Mondays. On my website, bmovieanima.com, this upcoming Friday, check out my review of Spaced Out, a Norman J. Warren joint. A little bit of a sex farce. It's funny. It's all right. It's all right. Maybe not his best, but far from the worst thing I've ever seen. So check that out. Anyway, guys, let's close up the Labyrinth. I'm going to get back into my tree where I eat bugs and McRibs. And yeah, we'll do that. So until then, I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.